Hey there, fellow explorers. Today's deep dive takes us into the intriguing world of relationships
Okay.
through the lens of John Gray's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Right.
Now, you've probably heard this book.
Yeah.
It's practically a cultural phenomenon. But we're not just skimming the surface here.
Uh-huh.
We're going deep, unearthing those hidden gems of insight that might make you rethink how you approach your own relationship.
I like that.
To guide us through this fascinating terrain,
Uh-huh.
we have an expert who's not only familiar with Gray's work, but has also spent years analyzing the intricate dance between men and women.
It's a pleasure to be here. What's often overlooked amidst the humorous Martian and Venusian metaphors is the depth of Gray's observations.
Right.
He doesn't just point out the differences between men and women.
Yeah.
He delves into the why, exploring the evolutionary and psychological roots of those differences.
That's what makes this deep dive so exciting.
Yes.
It's not just about understanding those quirky Martian-Venusian traits.
No.
It's about understanding the fundamental forces
Mhm.
that shape how we interact in relationships.
Precisely. For instance, Gray's concept of men retreating to their caves when stressed isn't just a funny anecdote. It's a reflection of deeply ingrained patterns.
Okay.
Imagine our ancestors. Men tasked with hunting and protecting
Okay.
often needed to solve problems independently and silently.
Right.
That need for focused internal problem solving is still wired into men's brains today.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like those ancient instincts are still playing out in our modern relationships.
Here.
Have you ever noticed this cave retreat in your own relationships? I know I have.
Absolutely.
And it used to drive me crazy, but now understanding the evolutionary basis makes it a little easier to accept.
Absolutely. And it's not just about accepting.
Right.
It's about learning to communicate effectively across those differences.
Right.
Women, on the other hand, evolved in environments where cooperation and communication were crucial for survival. Sharing feelings and seeking support became deeply ingrained in their neural pathways.
So when a woman wants to talk through her problems, it's not just about seeking solutions. It's about connecting and processing emotions through sharing.
Right.
It's like a fundamental need woven into her very being.
Exactly. And this is where those Martian-Venusian clashes often arise.
Uh-huh.
Imagine a man, stressed from work, retreating to his cave for some quiet contemplation.
Yeah.
His partner, wanting to offer support,
Okay.
tries to engage him in conversation. He, in turn, feels pressured and retreats further.
Okay.
She, feeling unheard and rejected, becomes frustrated.
It's a classic communication breakdown.
Right.
Fueled by those deep-seated differences in how we process stress and seek connection.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that neither person is intentionally trying to hurt the other.
Right.
They're simply operating from different planetary playbooks.
And that's where Gray's insights become incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
He provides a framework for understanding these differences, not to excuse bad behavior,
Right.
but to create a roadmap for more effective communication.
It's like he's giving us a decoder ring
Uh-huh.
to decipher those cryptic Martian and Venusian messages.
Exactly.
So let's delve into some of those communication patterns that often lead to misunderstandings.
Okay.
One that always trips me up is this whole offering solutions versus providing empathy dynamic.
Ah, yes, that's a classic Martian-Venusian pitfall.
Right.
Remember, men are wired to fix things.
Yeah.
It's in their DNA.
Okay.
So when a woman expresses her feelings, a man's instinct is to jump into problem-solving mode, offering advice and solutions.
So it's like their brains switch into fix-it mode,
Right.
even if the situation doesn't require fixing.
Exactly.
I remember once I was telling my partner about a stressful day at work,
Uh-huh.
and he immediately started suggesting ways to improve my time management.
Okay.
I was like, honey, I don't need a project manager. I need a hug.
That's a perfect example of how well-intentioned Martian efforts can miss the mark.
Yeah.
For a woman, expressing her feelings is often about seeking validation and empathy, not necessarily a quest for solutions.
So it's not that men don't care.
Right.
They just express their care in a way that doesn't always resonate with women's emotional needs.
Yeah.
And this brings us to Gray's concept of love languages.
Ah, yes, the love languages. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Gray argues that we each have a primary way of giving and receiving love.
Right?
These languages include words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, gifts, and physical touch.
And the key is to understand both your own love language and your partners,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Because what feels loving to one person might not feel the same to another.
Absolutely. For example, a Martian might express his love by fixing things around the house
Okay.
or taking on extra chores thinking he's being incredibly helpful and loving.
Uh-huh.
But if his Venusian partner's primary love language is quality time, she might feel neglected and unappreciated despite his efforts.
It's like he's speaking fluent Martian,
Exactly.
but she's only understanding bits and pieces of Venusian.
Right.
So how do we start deciphering those love languages and bridging that communication gap?
Well, it starts with self-awareness.
Okay.
Take some time to reflect on what makes you feel loved and appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
What gestures or actions really touch your heart?
Yeah.
What leaves you feeling empty or unfulfilled?
Okay.
Once you understand your own love language,
Right.
you can start to recognize those same patterns in your partner.
That's a great starting point.
Yeah.
And once you've identified those love languages, it's about making a conscious effort to speak each other's dialect,
Right.
to express love in a way that resonates with your partner's unique needs.
Exactly.
But what happens when those communication breakdowns inevitably occur? How do we navigate those Martian-Venusian conflicts?
That's where Gray offers some truly insightful strategies.
Mm-hmm.
He reminds us that conflicts are inevitable in any relationship, but it's how we handle them that determines the health and longevity of the bond.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
Right.
It's about learning to navigate those choppy Martian-Venusian waters with skill and grace.
Exactly.
What are some specific techniques that Gray suggests?
One of his most valuable concepts is the timeout.
Okay.
Now, this isn't about giving each other the silent treatment.
Right.
It's about recognizing when emotions are running high and taking a deliberate pause to cool down and regain perspective.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
It's so counterintuitive to what we're often taught about relationships.
That's right.
You know, that whole never go to bed angry mantra. But sometimes trying to force a resolution when you're both feeling triggered just leads to more frustration and resentment.
Exactly. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline.
Yeah.
Taking a time out allows both partners to step back, process their emotion, and approach the situation with a calmer, more rational mindset.
So it's about creating that emotional breathing room, that space to reflect and de-escalate before things spiral out of control.
Right.
It's like hitting the pause button on a heated argument so you can rewind and replay it with a more constructive approach.
That's a great analogy. And during that time out, it's crucial to reflect on your own feelings and needs. What triggered you?
Right.
What are you truly upset about? And how can you communicate those feelings more effectively?
That makes so much sense because sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you're not even sure what you're really angry about.
Right.
It's just a jumble of emotions and projections.
And that's where Gray's insights about those Martian-Venusian differences can be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
For example, he points out that men often use anger as a defense mechanism to protect themselves from feeling vulnerable emotions like hurt or sadness.
It's like that classic scenario.
Right.
A woman expresses her hurt feelings, and her Martian partner responds with anger and defensiveness.
It's not that he doesn't care.
Right.
It's that he's struggling to access and express those softer emotions.
Precisely. And for women, their emotional expression tends to be more fluid and cyclical.
Right.
Remember those ocean waves we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a gentle swell, and sometimes there's a full-on tsunami of emotions. It's all part of the natural ebb and flow of their experience.
And it's important for men to understand that those emotional waves are normal for women.
Yes.
And not necessarily a sign that something is terribly wrong. Trying to fix those emotions or talk a woman out of them will only make her feel more misunderstood and invalidated.
Exactly. It's about offering support and validation, not solutions.
Okay.
Now, this doesn't mean men have to become passive doormats.
Right.
It's about finding that balance between respecting her emotional process and asserting his own needs.
So how can men better support their partners during those emotional storms without feeling like they're being swept away? One of the most powerful things a man can do is simply offer his presence and validation. This means resisting the urge to offer solutions or try to fix her feelings. Instead, he should focus on just being there for her, listening with empathy, and acknowledging the validity of her experience.
It's like being a safe harbor in the midst of a storm. You don't have to calm the waves or change the weather. You just have to provide a steady and supportive presence.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And for men,
Yeah.
it's important to remember that offering this kind of support doesn't make them weak or incompetent.
Mm.
It actually strengthens their bond with their partners and allows for a deeper level of emotional intimacy.
This is resonating with me so much.
Yeah.
I used to think that being a supportive partner meant always having the right answers or fixing every problem.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm realizing that
Mm.
sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just listen with your whole heart and offer that unwavering presence.
Exactly. And it's not just about the words you say. It's about your body language, your tone of voice,
Mm-hmm.
and that genuine desire to understand and connect.
Now, we've talked a lot about how men can better understand and support women,
Right?
but what about the flip side?
Mm-hmm.
What are some things women can do to improve communication and strengthen their relationships with their Martian partners?
One of the most important things a woman can do is to understand that men often need to retreat to their caves to process their emotions.
Right. We talked about that earlier, how men tend to withdraw and become quiet when they're stressed.
Uh-huh.
It's their way of dealing with things internally.
Exactly. And it's important for women to respect that need for space and not take it personally.
Uh-huh.
Trying to force a man to talk when he's not ready will only push him further into his cave.
It's like trying to pry open an oyster before it's ready to reveal its pearl.
Right.
You have to be patient and give it time.
That's a great analogy. And when a man does emerge from his cave,
Okay.
it's crucial for women to avoid bombarding him with complaints or negativity.
Right.
Remember, men are most responsive when they feel admired and appreciated.
So it's all about setting the right tone
Uh-huh.
and creating a positive and supportive environment where he feels safe to open up.
Exactly. And when a woman does need to express her feelings or concerns,
Okay.
it's important to do so in a way that doesn't feel like criticism or blame.
Right.
Gray really emphasizes the power of using I statements
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on expressing your own feelings and needs rather than attacking your partner's character.
So instead of saying, you never listen to me, you always just space out when I'm talking.
Right.
A better approach would be, honey, I feel hurt and ignored when you don't seem engaged in our conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I would really appreciate it if you could give me your full attention when I'm sharing something important with you.
It's about shifting from blame and accusation to expressing your needs and desires in a clear and assertive way.
And remember, men respond well to feeling trusted and capable.
Yeah.
So framing your requests in a way that acknowledges his strengths and abilities can go a long way in improving communication.
Exactly.
And this all ties back to the idea of understanding your partner's love language.
Absolutely.
What feels supportive to a woman might not feel the same to a man.
Absolutely. For men, acts of service,
Right.
like fixing something around the house or offering practical help, are often more meaningful than words of affirmation.
So it's like the Martian love language is all about action.
Exactly. While for women, words of affirmation, quality time, and physical touch tend to be more important.
So if you want to make your Venusian partner feel loved,
Uh-huh.
give them a heartfelt compliment.
Yeah.
Plan a special date night.
Right.
And don't forget the hugs and cuddles.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that these love languages can vary from person to person.
Right.
So communication is key.
Yeah.
Talk to your partner about what makes them feel loved and appreciated,
Uh-huh.
and be open to learning their unique love language.
This is all making so much sense. But I have a question. If these Martian-Venusian differences are so fundamental,
Uh-huh.
are we doomed to a lifetime of misunderstandings and conflicts?
Right.
Is it even possible to bridge that planetary gap?
That's a great question. And while it's true that men and women are wired differently,
Yeah.
Gray is optimistic about the possibility of creating strong and fulfilling relationships.
Okay.
He believes that understanding these differences is the first step towards bridging that gap and building a love that lasts.
So it's not about trying to change our partners.
Right.
Or wishing our partners were from a different planet.
Hmm.
It's about learning to speak each other's language
Mm-hmm.
and creating a relationship that honors those fundamental differences.
Exactly. And that's where the magic of love truly lies.
Mm-hmm.
In that willingness to embrace our differences and create a partnership that celebrates the unique strengths and qualities of both Martians and Venusians.
This has been amazing. We've uncovered so much about those tricky Martian-Venusian dynamics.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what does Gray say about keeping the spark alive in long-term relationships?
Okay.
Because, let's be honest, even the most passionate romances can sometimes lose their sizzle over time.
That's where Gray's wisdom really shines.
Okay.
He dives deep into the dynamics of long-term relationships,
Uh-huh.
emphasizing that maintaining that spark requires ongoing effort and a commitment to nurturing the connection.
Right.
It's not about recapturing that initial infatuation,
Okay.
but about cultivating a deeper, more enduring love that weathers the inevitable storms of life.
So it's less about chasing fleeting sparks and more about building a sustainable fire,
Right.
one that can provide warmth and comfort even on the coldest nights.
Precisely. And one of the key ingredients in that fire is quality time.
Mm-hmm.
Gray emphasizes the importance of carving out dedicated time for each other,
Right.
away from the distractions of work, kids, and those ever-present screens.
You know, it's so easy to fall into the trap of just coexisting,
Yeah.
of going through the motions of daily life without truly connecting.
Right.
I've definitely been guilty of that myself.
Right.
But what Gray's suggesting is to create those pockets of sacred space where you can truly tune into each other.
Exactly. Whether it's a weekly date night, a morning coffee ritual,
Uh-huh.
or simply taking a walk together after dinner,
Right.
it's about prioritizing that one-on-one time where you can talk, laugh, and simply enjoy each other's company.
And it's not just about the quantity of time. It's about the quality, right?
Absolutely.
It's about being fully present, putting away the phones, silencing those mental to-do lists, and truly focusing on your partner.
Absolutely. And those moments of connection don't have to be grand or elaborate.
Right.
Sometimes the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact.
Okay.
Remember those love languages we discussed?
Yeah.
Speaking your partner's love language is a powerful way to keep that spark alive.
That reminds me of something Gray said about the importance of expressing appreciation. It's so easy to take our partners for granted, especially in long-term relationships. But making an effort to acknowledge and appreciate those little things,
Yeah.
those acts of kindness, those quirky traits we fell in love with, that's what keeps the flame burning.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Whether it's a heartfelt thank you for making dinner or a spontaneous compliment on their appearance, those expressions of appreciation go a long way in nourishing the relationship.
Okay.
And it's not just about grand gestures, it's about those little everyday moments of recognition.
It's like that saying, the greatest things are done by a series of small things brought together. And I imagine this applies to relationships as well.
Right.
Those small, consistent acts of love and appreciation over time create a foundation of connection and intimacy.
Precisely. It's about creating a culture of appreciation in your relationship, where
Right.
you both feel seen, valued, and cherished.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the power of touch. Physical affection, whether it's a hug, a kiss, or simply holding hands, releases those feel-good hormones that strengthen the bond.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk.
Yeah.
Hand in hand, of course.
Exactly.
And I love that Gray emphasizes the importance of maintaining a sense of playfulness and fun in the relationship.
Absolutely. Laughter is truly a relationship elixir.
Right.
It relieves tension, creates shared joy,
Mm-hmm.
and reminds us why we fell in love in the first place.
So make time for silliness, embrace those inside jokes,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid to let your inner child come out and play. After all, isn't that what attracted us to our partners in the first place? That sense of sheer joy and adventure?
Exactly. And remember, love is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
It's about embracing the ups and downs, navigating those Martian-Venusian differences with grace and humor, and cherishing the unique bond you share with your partner.
Wow, this has been an incredible deep dive.
I agree.
We've gone from exploring those fundamental differences between men and women
Yeah.
to uncovering practical strategies for creating stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
It's been a pleasure sharing this journey with you, and I hope our listeners feel equipped with new insights and a renewed sense of hope for navigating their own Martian-Venusian adventures.
Absolutely. Remember, understanding is the foundation, communication is the bridge, and love is the destination.
I like that.
Now, before we wrap things up,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder. What's one small but meaningful action you can take today to show your partner love and appreciation in a way that speaks to their unique Martian or Venusian heart? Think about it, take action, and watch those sparks fly. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
It's been fun.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep the love alive.